TSB Talk Sport and Business on Talk 100.3. I'm Neil Ojha. With me, normally you'll hear Lachlan Kitchen, but he is on a vacation, chilling in Australia, and we are here calling the shots and having this conversation right now. With me is going to be Mr. Pankaj Jain, who's got over 2 decades of extensive tax experience in India, Europe, UAE. Pankaj specializes in entire gamut of taxation, be it VAT, be it GST, indirect, direct. इतने सारे नाम तो मैंने शायद सुने भी नहीं थे. उतना सारा टैक्स आप संभालते हो. पंकज, welcome to TSB.
Thank you so much, Neil. Welcome. Thank you, and it's glad to be back here.
I'm glad that you're here. You know, last time when you were here, I was on a holiday.
Yes.
And couldn't meet you. But then tell me something. Tax, एक टैक्स हो ना बंदा तो समझ सकता है. ये डायरेक्ट टैक्स, इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स, वीएटी तो चलो समझ में आ गया थोड़ा बहुत, जीएसटी, फिर ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग, इंटरनेशनल टैक्सेशन, ये सब होता क्या है? ये सब क्यों इतना क्यों कॉम्प्लेक्स बना देते हो? ताकि हम लोग कुछ समझ नहीं पाए इसलिए.
हमें अभी आप पता चला है कि you are coaching the under-19 team of UAE, so I'll try to answer it in the cricket terms. Googly is pinned, medium pay is fast pay.
वाह, शाबाश, क्या बात है. ये हुआ ना आंसर, यानी कि कंफ्यूजन को डबल कंफ्यूजन में आंसर करो. वो वन ऑफ माय बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट प्रोफेसर्स यूज्ड टू टेल अस कि द बेस्ट वे टू डू बिजनेस इज either convince the other person or confuse the other person. You did this the same. You couldn't convince me with the taxation because it's obviously a very deep topic, but you definitely confused everyone. कि भाई सुनो, ये मेरी स्पेशलिटी, ये मुझ तक रहने दो. But Pankaj, tell me something. VAT के काफी सारे regulations changes हो रहे हैं, काफी सारी नई चीजें आ रही हैं. If you could tell us what all one should look at as far as VAT is concerned now in the next year.
So, with 1st January 2023, VAT will be completing 5 years, and as it is, it was the first tax regime in the UAE.
Right.
So, अपने आप में काफी बड़ा change था businesses के लिए, accountants के लिए, and पिछले 5 साल में बहुत changes आए हैं, काफी कुछ सीखने को मिला है, businesses ने अपनी approaches change की है. I think पहला एक चीज जो उनको ध्यान में रखना है कि they need to be tax compliant.
Okay.
They cannot ignore tax as a simple 5% on their sales or anything. There are a lot of nuances into the tax, a lot of nitty-gritties, because as we always say, end of the day, VAT is a tax on transaction.
Right.
So the nature of transaction will decide the tax implications जो businesses को बहुत ध्यान रखना है. Plus, the changes which the government has recently introduced, which will be effective 1st of January 2023, are some of the significant changes, and it's a first ever set of changes in major bulk.
Okay.
Like there has been some changes here and there, but this is one comprehensive set of changes which we hope and we expect, looking at the global phenomena, will keep on happening from time to time.
Right. Now, I did hear one of the things that there was an extension time for a tax audit. If you could tell us about that.
Sure, definitely. So when the law was actually introduced in 2018, 5 years was given the time period within which a tax audit could be completed. So everybody had been under the impression that, okay, if 5 years has happened from the end of the month or quarter, whatever are their tax period, no further audit can happen, which now has been changed, whereby if a government gives us a notice that an audit has been commenced for you for a particular tax period, from that notice they will have 4 more years to complete the audit.
Okay.
So effectively it becomes 9 years by which time the audit can be completed.
Interesting. So this is a very good extension that has been provided to business setups, because see, many of the businesses that have been operating here for all these years never had to worry about any kind of taxation, any kind of paperwork. They just were doing business. With VAT coming in, it took them some time to understand that, oh, there's a tax.
Yes.
Then how to work alongside it, what papers are required, what documentation is required for auditing. Do I need to save every single bill that I'm paying for or generating? Do I need to save copies of my credit card details? All of that was so much of a confusion, and I remember this from the time it all started. Today, I'm sure that with people like you who are in the business of taxation and making people's life easier, has it become slightly easier to people come with the same basic questions, business owners?
You've raised an interesting point, and I'll come on that on saving the tax invoices. Yes, over the period of time, the kind of queries which the businesses are coming have changed, have matured a lot. So the basic questions have been reduced to a certain extent. But at the same time, there is still a lot of tax that businesses needs to learn.
Okay.
And they are still not very aware of the compliance gaps that or the errors that they're conducting right now.
So when that you talk about compliance gap, does tax evasion knowingly or unknowingly fall under that?
So yes, tax evasion in itself, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, falls under a gap wherein one, the tax authorities will now have 15 years to audit and issue a tax assessment. And what falls into a tax evasion now has been given a specific definition which says any use of illegal means. So
Right.
if a person has not registered where a person should have been registered, they have not declared their income properly, they have taken credits on false invoices, all this fall under the tax evasion, and the
Right.
government has 15 years to audit you now.
Wow, this is interesting. You know, this conversation is definitely getting very, very interesting because there are a lot of other things that are happening. Because there are some good news about for exporters. If you could tell us something about those.
Sure, absolutely. So just to take a step back in terms of the VAT registration requirement, there is a threshold of 375,000 dirhams
Okay.
if somebody is supplying goods or services. Above this threshold, they are supposed to register.
Okay.
And of course, once anyone registers for VAT, they have to also do a periodic compliance in terms of submitting at least quarterly VAT returns. From the very beginning, government had a kind of a concession available for companies who are engaged into exports alone, 100% exports, whether of goods or of services. They could have asked for what is called an exception from registration. Government will review your data and numbers, the tax authorities will review your data and numbers and will approve that exception, thereby meaning you don't have to submit quarterly VAT returns. But many people in 2018-19 were not aware of it. They already took the VAT registration, and
Okay.
after which they have been doing the VAT compliance. Now, under the amendment, this concession or this benefit has been extended to people already registered for VAT.
Okay.
So if anyone's supplies are 100% exports, whether of goods or services, especially if I can say one-man companies who are engaged in consulting to foreign clients,
Right.
and they are already registered, they can apply for this exception from registration, and then they don't have to submit their VAT returns periodically once this exception is approved.
So I'm just trying to clarify this. So hypothetically, I am a one-man person, a one-man business who goes to do, say, coaching or commentary around the world, not doing anything in the UAE.
Yes.
I do everything outside the country. Whatever I make out of that, because it's in the foreign land, I can be deregistered, or I don't have to register with the exemptions given.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, fair.
So it's just to add to this, like of course UAE is a hub for startups and everything.
Right.
On the technology part, there are a lot of startups who are catering extensively to overseas clients in terms
Makes
of
sense.
developing softwares and everything. Now they can also apply for a tax deregistration.
Interesting. So now when tax deregistration happens, this is also there for businesses that have zero duty goods ka business.
Yes.
Right.
So,
What are those?
So zero duty, so all the exports internationally also are always free from tax. The government does not want to export tax. So on exports, we don't charge tax. So any company which is already engaged, 100% of their supplies are exports only, they can also avail the same benefit that they don't need to register for VAT, or they can deregister now. I should also mention that once they take this exception from registration, they cannot recover any input credits on their expenses and purchases. So one has to evaluate through a tax consultant whether it is beneficial or not beneficial to deregister from tax.
Makes sense. There's something that has come through for the construction sector.
Oh yes, that's a slightly controversial one. Though. So construction sector always has what is called a retention payment, as in after the entire work has been completed, there is a portion of the total amount which is kept by the customer or the client, which will be paid, let's say, after what is called defect liability period. So for about 1 year or 2 years, they want to check whether everything is working in order, there is no leakage, there is no damage, and then the balance retention payment is paid.
Okay.
Now, government has introduced what is called a date of supply concept, which was already there, but it has been now clarified that once you supply the goods or services, within 12 months of that, you need to pay the tax on it. Okay. Now with this defect liability period could be extending 1 or beyond 1 year, it becomes a kind of question to debate as to when these construction companies need to pay VAT on the retention payment.
Makes sense, yeah, because I mean, if they're paying VAT, so then they're paying advance VAT, technically paying from their own
even
pocket before,
even
before they've received their final amount.
That's what's all about, and this could seriously impact all the construction industries.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it this big that they might say, listen, ab se hum ghar nahi banayenge?
नहीं इतना तो नहीं होगा काम business. See, tax never stops the business. Tax is never a regulatory law, so it's more of a whatever is your transaction, tax has to be paid on that accordingly.
Right.
But इसमें ये issue होगा कि जैसे अगर construction period अपने आप में 1 या 2 साल या 3 साल का construction period है, तो definitely between that retention payment and the actual delivery of goods 1 साल से ऊपर का period लगेगा.
बराबर.
तो उसमें वो cash flow का major impact आएगा.
Now see, this is what I get to learn in detail when Pankaj comes here and speaks to us about taxations. Pankaj, is there anything that a common man like I, who does not have a business, has to worry or think about all of these things that have happened?
Slightly, yes.
Okay.
If you are into any business and suppose you have not registered for tax, if your income is more than 375,000, even including exports, you have to apply for a tax registration and also apply for exception as we talked about,
right,
if applicable. क्योंकि अगर आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन ही नहीं किया, काफी लोगों को लगता है कि अगर मैंने रजिस्टर नहीं किया तो गवर्नमेंट को पता ही नहीं चलेगा, सब कुछ एवरीथिंग इज गुड. But under the new amendments, now government has 15 years to audit you if you have failed to register.
Right.
So to evaluate whether you are required to register or not, unless you have a absolutely proper salary income from your employer, that evaluation is necessary.
Right. So wait, you said that if you have a salary income and only a salary income, but there are multiple people, and now that you know the regulations of visas and all have been eased out, where a person can do multiple things. You know, you can do a full proper job and at the same time can do some side hustles to ensure that there is enough and more coming. Does that also fall under the purview of VAT, or it doesn't?
It certainly does. So it's a very, very good question that you have raised, or a point you have raised, that people who are on a salary income but also do a side employment or a side work or a business, or as a freelancer under the new visas, individual is working as a freelancer, all those would be treated as conducting a business. So there is no prohibition that if I am an employee, I cannot parallelly do a business. So my income from business, including a freelance business, would be covered or would be seen as a business under the VAT law.
Okay.
The moment I cross the registration threshold, VAT implications would.
So whatever you want to earn less than 375,000 and you're sorted.
Earn more, pay more tax. Why restrict your income?
Why restrict your income? No, that's absolutely fair. Pankaj, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. And if people have to reach out to ask you more questions, I see a little tag that reads Ask Pankaj. I have asked a lot of questions, but if people want to ask you questions, where do they reach out to you?
They can reach out to us on our website. It's just about to get revamped and uploaded again. It's AskPankaj.com.
Perfect. That just simplifies everything. You have a question you want to ask Pankaj, go to AskPankaj.com. Thank you so much, Pankaj Jain, for joining us and for this conversation.